Week 1 NFL Sundays in the books. We've got tons to get into from the weekend that was. Jordan Love's injury. Now we know up to 6 weeks there. Dak, new contract as the Cowboys roll. Harbaugh's back, rookie quarterbacks, and so much more coming at you right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you hit that sub button, subscribe on YouTube or everywhere you get your podcast, just like all the everydayers out there. In fact, there's a lot of everydayers that still aren't even subscribed. So subscribe if you're an everydayer or if you're brand new to the show. Welcome. We will be breaking down the league every single day as we do here on Peacock and Williamson and the entire Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks daily fantasy made easy and made a lot more fun. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right. I was actually going to save this till a little bit later in the show and get some hard news out of the way first. But I'm not going to, Matt, because I'm a little frustrated with what I saw on too many football fields on Week 1 Sunday, and that was extended preseason. I saw teams that looked like garbage. I thought I saw too much bad football from teams, especially from teams that will be in Week 17 and 18, like, say, I don't know, the Los Angeles Rams or the Atlanta Falcons or the Cincinnati Bengals that might be needing that extra win in Week 17, 18 to get into the playoffs for playoff seeding. And you look back, it's like you're giving away wins in Week 1 that matter just as much. What are we doing out here? And not to mention from a fan perspective, some bad offensive line play, some bad quarterback play, I think a lot due to a lack of playing preseason football. And it's kind of odd, Matt, when you think about it, that the NFL and NFL teams and coaches thought, okay, we have one fewer preseason game now, so let's play our guys even less than we were going to when there was 4 preseason games. How did that all even happen and come together? And I get you don't want to get your players hurt. That makes total sense. But you also need to win football games. And I think I saw at least, and those 3 teams really come to mind. The Rams, it was a good game, overtime. The Rams, though, we're lucky even to get to overtime, I think. The Atlanta Falcons look like hot garbage to me. The Bengals, same. Like, these teams should be in the mix, and they're giving away wins in Week 1 in my mind.
I definitely would throw the Browns in that mix. I mean, them and the Bengals to me are the poster boys. I mean, that was really, really bad. I'm not sure I'm going to throw the Rams quite in there, although they didn't play their guys at all. I mean, they just couldn't block anybody. I mean, I've never seen an O-line this decimated in Week 1. I mean,
that's where you really see it and there was bad offensive line play throughout the league. And those 5 guys have to move as a unit. And there's a lot that goes into playing offensive line and more than just being some big brute and being physically able to beat the man in front of you. You have to move as one unit of 5 players. And, and then bad O-line even affects that quarterback play and timing even more. So I think that's why we see a lot of those things. And the Rams, I thought, had an opportunity because I thought in the end, let's go to that game first because it's the most fresh.
It was a good game,
Sunday Night Football, and the Detroit Lions did end up beating the Los Angeles Rams 26-20. I thought there was some hiccups there, and like you look at the Rams play, and it's like, okay, good. You had your script of 15 plays, 12 of them were for Cooper Kupp. But then after that, it was like, okay, no, it just felt off. The Rams did to me. And I've seen some other people that don't think the Rams felt as off. I thought the Rams felt off to me. I thought the early defensive play was more because of a little bit of bad offensive play for both of those teams. And then when the game started to get down to it and in the second half, and maybe they're getting their feet under them a little bit, I just felt like the Lions were a lot better football team. and they were able to run the ball. They were able to go down the field. They were able to make short plays and big plays in the passing game. And I came away thinking the Lions were a lot better football team than the Rams. And I think it was again, extended preseason play early in that game that kept it closer than it should have been. And the Rams could have stolen a win, I think, if they would have potentially come out of the gate a little bit hotter and played a little bit better in week one. And so even though it was I don't think it was great football, if that makes sense.
It does. I disagree with you slightly on the Rams, just because I thought they just didn't have anybody that knew how to block. I mean, like their tackles were so shot. Avila gets hurt in this game. I mean, Hutchinson's just killing that young kid from the 7th round pick at left tackle, and they're not helping him much. It's like, what is going on here? Nakua gets hurt, but I do agree that it was choppy and pretty rough for the Rams. And if they don't have Stafford and McVay and Kupp, they get blown out. You know what I mean? Like those veterans that know how to win in this league kept this thing close, and they controlled the clock a little. But I'm 100% with you that Detroit was clearly the better football team. And when they got the ball in overtime, like, oh, this is over. You know, they're just run right down their throats, and they did.
I know the stat line doesn't really tell the story, but I really felt like, and look, by the way, I drafted Blake Corum in my fantasy league as a nice little handcuff. I thought, okay, Kyron Williams returning punts. I mean, might be a little bit of a committee backfield. Corum didn't play a snap.
No, I saw him on special teams. That's the only time I saw his jersey.
He didn't play a snap on offense. And Ryan Rivers runs out there. Is like, oh God, what's going on there? And halfway through the second quarter, Jahmyr Gibbs hadn't stepped on the field but one time, I think, for the Lions. But once he got on the field, I thought it changed their offense, and they looked so much better. And that really kind of what kicked their offense in gear, because it was not a lot was happening for the first quarter and a half of that football game, and then it actually helped Montgomery, I think, a little bit too. Gibbs has to get on the field earlier if you're the Lions, and again, we go back to the draft, and people he's a good player, and people are hearing me like, oh, good, you think he's awesome and he changes things. Well, yeah, so put him on the field. You draft a guy in the first round to be a backup running back. What are we doing?
Yeah, no, I hear you there. And St. Brown had probably his smallest output of his career. It seems like that guy's so consistent.
Laporta too. Yeah. St. Brown and Laporta. Like, this wasn't a great game for your fantasy teams if you drafted Puka Nacua like 12th or 13th overall, and then all of a sudden you see Cooper Kupp, vintage #1 wide receiver out there. So
and I don't know. Nacua might miss a lot of time too. Who knows? I mean, that doesn't look great
in the offseason too.
Yeah. But then the Lions O-line took over. To your point, right. Good O-lines stood out,
Yep. And I think it improved defense for the Detroit Lions as well.
I totally agree. And I can sort of excuse, like, the rookie quarterbacks didn't play well. Bryce Young was horrific. But some of these guys that didn't play, the Watsons and Burrows and those type of dudes, I mean, that's a different story to me.
Okay, yeah, I want to get more into all of that. Can we just talk about the Panthers real quick and how bad they looked?
Oh man,
and we talked about this in the preseason. Like, how are you not playing if you're trying to develop right now? How are you not playing Bryce Young in the second preseason game? And the Panthers go out there, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the ball. They had nothing. They looked like a high school football team playing an NFL team. So I couldn't even take away like, are the New Orleans Saints like pretty good, or are the Panthers just that bad? But like, there's zero chance that the Carolina Panthers aren't 32 in the post week 1 power rankings in the NFL.
Right. Like I did one 1 week ago and was teetering between the Patriots and Panthers. That seems crazy now.
I know. Yes, the big win. Okay, let's get into that. More games. Jordan Love's injury, Dak's new contract with the Cowboys, rolling over the Browns, and a whole lot more from week 1 next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. And if you've never played PrizePicks, couldn't be easier. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. And all you have to do is get 2 of them right, and they're giving you 1 for free. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. So check out PrizePicks, and all you got to do is download the PrizePicks app today and use our code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is also sponsored by BetterHelp. And this hit me recently. When you think about children and the wonder that they have and the curiosity that they naturally have. And my son's always wanting to play with me. He's like, got these Legos together. He's like, Dad, can we play Legos? And it's like, and my imagination is just not there. And he's just, the world is just all brand new to him. And I'm jealous of it. Kids are always learning and growing. But as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. And so I'm sure everyone out there listening has that something maybe they would like to learn. Maybe you want to learn how to play guitar. You want to learn a new language. You want to be better at gardening, whatever it is, golf. I'm still like, I've played it's amazing how many golf balls I've hit in the last few years since I really started golfing and getting just incrementally better. But that is one thing. It's like, I have a wonder for that. And I'm still trying to, I'm like a child when it comes to golf. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any age. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient and flexible to your schedule. Rediscover that curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp. HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Matt. Let's get into the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns. Let's talk a little AFC North here. So I want to talk Atlanta and Pittsburgh as well, because that kind of ties into some of what I saw out there. And I saw a team, and by the way, congratulations, Dak Prescott, 11th hour, getting a deal done, 4 years, $240, right? $60 million a year. Is that what the contract
is for
Dak Prescott? How does it take that long to do a contract that everybody knows the exact numbers? Everybody knew all offseason. Like, oh, Dak probably $60 million a year, 4 years, How does it take that long to get that done?
I don't have an answer for that. Why couldn't this been a month ago? Right.
Anyway, Dak is back. He's staying. CeeDee Lamb is staying. They finally got those deals done. And then the Cowboys just go out there and roll the Cleveland Browns. And I don't know if any quarterback situation felt worse, because you can have a young quarterback that isn't developing and plays bad, which is better than having an old, expensive, guaranteed money quarterback like Deshaun Watson that plays bad. Like, the Browns looked awful out there against the Cowboys, especially their quarterback. That's a problem.
Maybe the Giants one is close. No, none are close. None are close, because I mean, he's guaranteed $74 million next year now too. I mean, after the restructure, and they were playing with 2 backup tackles, and the tackle got hurt against the wrong team. And Parsons was unbelievable in this game, and Zimmer and Parsons and this defense was incredible, and they could be really, really good this year. And the Browns D is there's the thing no one notices here was pretty darn good, but the Browns offense was that bad. Watson was that bad that already Cleveland fans have pretty much turned on this guy. Like, they're chanting for Winston already. And I get it.
There was reasons that a lot of fans were jumping off the Browns ship just by bringing Watson in because of everything else.
Right.
And he plays bad on top of it, that you have to be upset. And on top of it, by the way, 33-17 win for the Cowboys over the Cleveland Browns. And then on top of that, your old quarterback that you swept out of town, Baker Mayfield, is throwing up 4 touchdown passes and looking like a franchise quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they beat a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders 37-20.
Yeah, the Bucs, I thought, played really, really well. There was a couple quarterbacks that you wouldn't think about. Carr, Mayfield, Darnold, that played as well as anyone yesterday.
No doubt. And Jaden Daniels
play the hardest defenses, but
Yeah. I just want to note Jaden Daniels kind of struggled as a passer in his first game, but had a couple touchdown runs, 16 carries for 88 yards on the ground. That's going to be a weapon for that team. and was able to save the fantasy owners that might have started a rookie quarterback, which was not wise if you looked at the rookie quarterbacks around the NFL. The Bears pulled out a W somehow, even though Caleb Williams had the fewest passing yards of any starting quarterback in the league. You felt like the Titans kind of gave that one away in the second half. They were up 17-3.
Levis was horrific in the second half of that game too. That was a tale of two halves.
A couple of picks. One was worse than the other. 24.
And I didn't think Caleb played well either. I mean, both quarterbacks were really bad. The Bears won that game without an offensive touchdown, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple teams that did that. The Pittsburgh Steelers did the same thing, right?
Right.
And you know what?
I mean, the Broncos had 2 safeties and lost.
Well, so here's the other one.
There's a lot of crazy stuff.
All right, let's finish the rookie quarterback conversation with Bo Nix then, because Bo Nix, you look at his stat line, it wasn't terrible, but he didn't complete any passes down the field. It was dink and dunk. Every time he threw down the field, it was bad and either intercepted or nearly intercepted. And I don't think the Seahawks played amazing. It was actually a really close game, closer than it probably should have been. 26-20 was the final score there. But, so and I think that doesn't really tell the story of that game either, because I didn't think the Knicks looked great. But you don't expect it, but you want a quarterback to, like Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels played a lot of college football too, but nobody's ever played more than Bo Nix. You would hope he gets his feet under him a little bit sooner, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. But I didn't think the Seahawks played great. And Geno Smith threw for 171 yards, and a touchdown and interception. He was a little bit off, but they just ran the heck out of the ball on the Broncos in the end and didn't really utilize the passing game to much effectiveness. Kenneth Walker with 100 rushing yards there, and that's what really put the Seahawks past the Broncos in that one.
Totally agree. It was not a super impressive Seattle win, but they got the win in week 1. Denver's bad. Knicks was bad. But if we're going to give Jalen Daniels credit for running, Knicks did that as well. He got a nice touchdown run. And all these young rookie quarterbacks, they all have athleticism now, so they can get by. They can keep their head above water as they learn, at least. I'm not saying all these guys are going to stink.
I came away, my strongest takeaway, maybe the entire NFL Sunday, Matt, was that I'm really glad I drafted Pittsburgh's defense in my fantasy league. Even though
it might be the best in the league.
Even though
I'm serious. Yeah.
I didn't start him in week 1 because I believed in the offseason hype around the Atlanta Falcons. And I started the Texans defense instead. And the Colts put up a pretty good fight against the Texans, even though the Texans, I think, won up front handily in that game. And Anthony Richardson had the best throw, the best play, I think, of the entire week 1, which was a throw of 65 air yards that he didn't even have a chance to step into, and just dropped it right in the bucket, perfect to Alex Pierce for a touchdown. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It's the 3rd longest throw by air yards, by the way, according to Next Gen Stats. Since 2016, he didn't even step into it, man.
It's ridiculous, but it was one of 9 completions for Richardson. 9. You know what I mean? Like it was home runs. He had a lot of big ones. He ran well, and that was it, though. I mean, there was no consistency. I mean, again, one of these young quarterbacks that flashed some serious athleticism and traits, and that's kind of the thing about Bryce Young to me. Like, you never at least see one of those moments ever.
Yeah, exactly. You see all the downside, none of the upside. So
right. I get that they're all work in progresses, but show me something that most people can't do, Big win by the Texans, though. That was not an easy victory.
Yeah. Big win in division. Important. And back to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
We're all over the place, and there's so much going on.
One thought leads us to another here, but this is our biggest takeaways from week 1. The Pittsburgh Steelers not only maybe the best defense in the league from week 1, the best defensive player in the league. Now that Aaron Donald has retired, TJ Watt, I was like, this is the best defensive player in the NFL right now. That dude is a maniac and didn't even get credit for some of the other big plays he made.
That's the thing. That was one of the best defensive games I've ever seen by a player, period. I mean, it was really that good. And I think there's about 5 defenses, including Pittsburgh, that could be the best in the league. And, like Porter shut down London. That's a good offensive line, and the Steelers destroyed them, especially in protection. And
the stars came out. Cam
Yeah.
Hayward was a monster in the run game,
Yep.
and Mika Fitzpatrick was a beast. Like,
Yep.
But here's the thing: is okay. So
And they
back
didn't
to
score
our
a
other
touchdown either.
conversation, the Atlanta Falcons.
right,
Didn't play anybody in preseason. You got a quarterback who's on the shelf in bubble wrap, coming off an Achilles, and I think they have a problem there because he did not look right at all. Kirk Cousins,
not at all.
So how much of it was the Pittsburgh Steelers dominating? And I do believe they're good, but I think it was
Both.
almost just as much as the Atlanta Falcons looking awful, like they were playing an extended preseason game.
100%. And at least, I mean, Bijan looked awesome. If he was on my fantasy team, I'd be thrilled. I'm sure London will be fine. But Cousins, I just retweeted a clip of him just flat out not trusting his bad leg. You know, no pressure at all. It was a 3rd and 15, and he like really favors the leg in a bad way. And couldn't play a series to start the, in the preseason. At least get out there a little bit, take a hit. I don't know.
And while I love
the Steelers couldn't score. Boswell, it's 6 field goals.
I was just going to say, they kicked 6 field goals to win the game. Hopefully they're putting the ball in the end zone at some point. Russell Wilson coming back. That was a surprise. Was he inactive? I think I saw him with his uniform.
He was the emergency quarterback. So he could have gone in there. The third guy, Allen would have had to come out.
And so Justin Fields ended up playing. He wasn't awful, but they did enough in that game because of their defense. You're not going to be able to kick only field goals and win a lot of football games in the NFL. So, that's something to monitor for sure for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Another crazy thing from that game, and I don't want to harp too much on it. Fields didn't even attempt one pass between the numbers. Didn't even attempt one.
Wow.
Everything was just roll out right, throw it there. Roll out left, throw it there. Just manage the whole situation. And it was enough because they knew Atlanta couldn't do anything on offense.
Yeah. All right, next, we got to talk Jordan Love's injury. Tyreek Hill arrested and then shows up at the stadium and looks like the game changer that he's always been. Another note on dual halfbacks in the NFL. Tons more to get to from week 1 on this edition of Peacock and Williamson. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets for any event. NFL football games, they got them. College football games, yep. Major League Baseball, when NHL and NBA games get going, they've got those too. Not just sports either. Concert tickets, comedy tickets, theater events, whatever it is near you, you can find the tickets at Game Time and get some killer last-minute deals. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets for some events. Save up to 60%, by the way, on those last-minute concerts, comedy, theater, and sports tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Jim Harbaugh is back in the NFL, and I was so impressed by the Los Angeles Chargers, not because they lit it up, but because of how different they looked as a football team.
Yeah.
With mostly the same players as last year. It was a completely different team. You had J.K. Dobbins looking like vintage Frank Gore. You had Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack doing huge things on that defense, and the offensive line really came together to help that team win, grind it out type of a game, even though they didn't start out fast against the Los Angeles Raiders. So in the end, Jim Harbaugh gets a win, and he didn't have to rely on his quarterback to play hero ball to do it. 22-10 win, and after a first quarter touchdown, only 3 more points for the Raiders against that Chargers defense.
Yeah, and I still am, but I'm very skeptical on the Chargers. Like, they were one of my favorite under win total bets, just because I think they're lacking talent. But everything you said was 100% correct in that they just played differently, and all the pass attempts were short, and they ran the ball well, and they're disciplined. And I thought the defense played really, really well too, and smart, and they're not they're all assignment sound, and that's nothing against the Raiders. They're okay. I don't think the Raiders are anything close to a contender. But you're right. I mean, a professional, big-time coach makes such a difference.
There's a couple of games I want to touch on here before we're done to try to get to all of them. And you kind of briefly mentioned Darnold and Daniel Jones. And it's not a good sign after week one when the media is asking the head coach if they're going to bench the starting quarterback. That's what happened after the New York Giants fall to the Vikings 28-6.
Seems like Giants and Browns are the two that are going to get that this week.
Yeah. And you don't feel great about it if you're a fan base and you're like, well, this was our veteran quarterback option that we've
and our expensive guy,
you already are giving up on it as a fan potentially after week one. And meanwhile,
maybe Cousins is in that conversation too. Now I think about it,
yeah, for a little bit different reason, because
a little bit different reason, but
the injury, and it makes you worry about Aaron Rodgers. By the way, on Monday night, seeing Cousins how he was dealing with his Achilles, happened a lot later than Rodgers did in the season last year. But going back to the Giants and the Vikings, and Sam Darnold had one incompletion at halftime. He ended up throwing a signature pick, and Darnold's going to do that. Mm-hmm. But in the end, the Vikings might be okay, or did they just play against a bad New York Giants football team?
Yeah, Vikings and Saints are kind of the same to me. You know, did they play the two worst teams in the league on their best day, or are they better than we think? But I do think there's something to be said for, if we're going to give Harbaugh credit, I think we should give O'Connell credit with the Vikings too. I mean, I think he's a strong coach, and Darnold played extremely well, and they were the two least competitive games of the weekend with Saints and Vikings wins.
How about the Miami Dolphins narrowly defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars 20-17? I've got a couple of notes on this one. Number one, there was video of Tyreek Hill getting arrested. He's face down on the asphalt before the game on his way to the stadium. And then I was like, man, is he not even going to play in this game? And then you see number 10 out there going for 130 yards and looking like the game changer he always does for that Miami Dolphins offense. Well, meanwhile, Tua Tagovailoa has the most passing yards in the entire league in week one, 338.
Yeah, and my notes on this one are more fantasy oriented, you know, in that, yeah, Tyreek's awesome. No one should worry about Waddle. Tua's going to throw for a ton of yards. I thought he actually moved around a little better. Skinny Tua. I mean, I guess he lost a little bit of weight, but they manufactured a lot of receptions for Devon Achane. You know, it's 7 catches for 76. That was great. Back and forth game. I thought it was a pretty evenly played game. But my other take, though, was Brian Thomas might be the number one already in Jacksonville.
He looks smooth. He's
he's a
tracking
player,
the
man.
ball. Yeah. And it looks like his quarterback already trusts him as well.
Yeah. I mean, ATN had that awful fumble that basically cost him the game. And then Tyreek goes over the top for a giant play, you know.
And the Jaguars obviously got blanked in the second half, but they started out hot and they put the pressure on the Dolphins, weren't able to keep that going into the second half. But
they can't blame the Florida sun either.
Right. And you mentioned Achane as a receiver. This is interesting. Oh, the only team that had 2 halfbacks on the field over 50% of the time was the Miami Dolphins. So most of Achane were on the field together a lot. I think the next closest in a team, I noticed this in the preseason. I think I made a note of it here on the show. And I saw Brian Robinson Jr. and
a little bit,
Austin Eckler on the field together for the Washington Commanders, which I think is super interesting. I think more teams should do that. But a lot of the times they were both on the field, Achane was just split out like a wide receiver. So like we've got a true like wide back situation here, I think, with Achane, and he can be on the field with Raheem Mostert at the same time. So both can be fantasy relevant if you're looking at it from the fantasy angle as well. And I did love Tua, how, you know, dude, Mike McDaniels is a genius, first of all.
He really is.
I love the way he's putting this offense together, all the speed they have in the offense. Tua did make a couple big time throws down the field too. So it wasn't just
he did
factored for Tua.
You've been saying the word wide back for a long time. I mean, that's a Niner local term, obviously. And I think it's going to start catching on. Like, is that Austin Eckler now? Is that a Chan now? I mean, we can come up with a lot of other names.
Mike McDaniel's the reason wide backs exist.
Exactly.
They had one wrinkle in the offense where they handed the ball to Deebo Samuel when he was in San Francisco. They're like, well, that worked really well. Let's lean into this thing because our running backs are hurt. And all of a sudden you have a new wrinkle to the offense, which is a huge staple now. And so Achane could be one of those players. And why not utilize that to your advantage if you're the Miami Dolphins?
I can't help myself. You know, your team's talking about wide back and speed, and my team trotted out a fair amount of snaps of 14 personnel. Najee Harris, 4 tight ends, Justin Fields. We don't even need anybody else. So who's the biggest guys you can get, you know?
Look, multiple ways to win a football game. You can throw
Yeah.
338 yards, or you can kick 6 field goals. Okay.
Kick 6 field goals with 4 tight ends on the field. Let's go. And a power back and a quarterback that doesn't throw that well but runs. Yeah, here we go. Interesting week, man.
2 more games. We'll finish with Jordan Love and the Packers falling to the Philadelphia Eagles from Friday night. But let's go Bills Cardinals, and the Cardinals gave them a scare in our predictions. Do you remember when we were making our predictions for this week? It was a 6-point line. Well, it ended up being a push, and I took the Bills. You took the Cardinals, and I wanted to take the Cardinals, and I ended up taking the Bills just because, look, it's the Cardinals, and the Bills are at home, and you're traveling, 2,500 miles across the country to go play in Buffalo, and Josh Allen in the end had to kind of go hero ball. 2 touchdown passes, 2 touchdown runs in this one for the Bills to make a second half comeback, but they were down to the Arizona Cardinals. And I think Kyler Murray and that Cardinals offense certainly passed the test.
Yep. So we were both right on our picks. We're really smart.
Nailed it.
And to be honest, my favorite bet of the whole weekend was the over in this game. And it probably will be for the foreseeable future in Cardinal games. Marvin Harrison didn't do anything. James Conner never left the field, but this is a good offense. A couple notes too. The Bills played Thursday against the Dolphins, and there's something going on with Josh Allen's hand or wrist. So just keep an eye on that. And it sure looks like they are not going to have a true featured receiver. It's not everything's going to go through Diggs. I mean, everybody is out there and they're all getting the football.
Yes. And at the goal line, Josh Allen's getting the ball. So Josh Allen still is good for your fantasy team as long as his hand's okay. And anybody's guess, I thought there'd be more Kincaid. Coleman made a nice contested catch, but I think that's kind of the player he's going to be. It's really hard to say, from a fantasy perspective, which player on offense you want to own on your team aside from Josh Allen.
Just looked at it. 10 different players were targeted in that game.
Yeah. And who got the leading receiver was Coleman for catches.
Coleman had the most targets and the most catches with 4. And I guess he played the most snaps of any of the receivers too, but it's only 71%.
Shakir looked good running the ball after the catch too, well. So I think he's an option there. But again,
Kincaid didn't do much, but I think he will.
Let's finish it up here with the Friday night game, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. And there's less about the game in this one than Jordan Love getting hurt. And thankfully, 6 weeks is good news for the Packers here, because it was a situation where it was an ankle. Oh no, it might be an ACL. They might have lost in the first game of the year their young star quarterback that they just paid in Jordan Love. So the good news is it looks like 3 to 6 weeks for Jordan Love. And we'll find out exactly what that ends up being for Jordan Love and his injury. They just traded for Malik Willis, and
I don't like the guys that are trotting out there at all.
By the way, week 3 is a revenge game. Malik Willis
at Tennessee. I just pulled it up.
Titans, yeah. So you got Colts, Titans, and Vikings. Jordan Love's not going to play any of those, and he might not play the next 3 games after that. You could be in a pretty big hole if you're the Packers if you don't get some kind of significant quarterback play. And especially if you get subpar quarterback play, you have to bring in a veteran to raise the floor, I think. And what's crazy is who's out there? Ryan Tannehill. You can have both the Titans' old quarterbacks, maybe.
Nice. Yeah. And Tannehill will get up to speed pretty quick. That wouldn't be terrible. They host Indy, go to Tennessee, host the Vikings, go to the Rams. So the next 4. None of those are super easy, but that's not awful. I just think their quarterback play now is officially worst in the league. At least on paper. Real quick notes from that game. I wasn't blown away by Love or Hurts, and it seems like 100 years ago that game happened. But, the Eagles, to me, won this game because A.J. Brown hit a bomb and Barkley's big plays. All the fantasy owners that drafted Barkley are doing cartwheels right now.
Packers fans are definitely punching air right now because not only the Jordan Love injury, but they hoped, and I thought there was a good chance that a new defensive coordinator was going to fix things on defense. Their run fits were awful.
Really bad.
Quay Walker doesn't look like a starting linebacker in the NFL. One of those runs from Saquon Barkley was the biggest hole I've ever seen in my life. Like,
you give that guy that much space. Come on.
How is that possible?
I wasn't even impressed with Barkley. I mean, I know he had 1 million fantasy points, he had big plays, but I wasn't like, boy, he's a Barry Sanders out there.
Yeah, and like he's got that burst. There was too many holes for him to run through. So again, that's partially because there's a good offensive line on one side, and I think the Packers defense had some problems with their run fits there. So that's definitely something to monitor for the Packers, whether or not they got Jordan Love back at quarterback or not.
Maybe it's just in the water there. It seems like that's been the case for a decade.
Yeah. Where we at here? So one more last note, and this kind of brings it all together here for, some of the poor play and offense is not quite up to speed yet in week 1. This from Steve Palazzolo, formerly of PFF. He's doing a podcast now with the 33rd team, I believe it is.
Wow.
And Steve Palazzolo brings up this stat. It's a great one. Unless the Jets and 49ers combine for 672 passing yards, so 336 passing yards for each team on Monday Night Football, with these two good defenses, probably unlikely, then week 1 of 2024 has the lowest passing yard output since 2010. And it would also be breaking the output from last year, which was kind of down to start last year with, again, a lot of teams not doing preseason stuff. So bring it all back. Teams not ready to play this year, and teams have not been ready to play with the new format of not playing people in the preseason. So play your teams, play your players in the preseason, and go get a win in week 1 because it's just as meaningful as a win in week 18.
My last note is Warren Sharp did a really detailed analysis of the preseason that scoring was lowest in the preseason for like a decade or two or whatever. I mean, in a very, very long time, mostly because they're not playing anybody, but there's also this O-line, D-line discrepancy, and refs influenced it quite a bit, but no one's playing their guys.
Niners, Jets, Monday Night Football. Of course, we'll break that one down tomorrow, and we've got tons more for you every day, as we always do here on Peacock and Williamson. Thanks for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen, make sure you check out any number of programs, 200 shows on the network. Your team is covered no matter the sport. Locked On NFL. We got morning and evening shows there now as well, and so much to offer. Join us right back here tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.